Let me introduce some staff who are with us today. I'm Jill Hobson again, Institutional Program Manager for IMS Global. And we also have with us today Sandra DeCastro, Vice President for Community Programs, Joaquin Alvarez, Institutional Program Manager, Kara Jenkins, my partner in crime for this event, and the Marketing Communications Director at IMS. Lisa Matson is also the Chief Operating Officer. She's not with us today. For those of you who may not be familiar with IMS Global, we are a nonprofit member collaborative. Our members include leading districts, state organizations, higher ed institutions, and educational technology suppliers working together to innovate and improve the EdTech ecosystem to enable better learning from better learning technology through plug-and-play integration, open architecture, and the assurances that come with IMS Global certification. Each member district has evolved their own unique strategy and approach based on their unique situation. Yet all of the districts are collaborating on the open IT and integrated curriculum architecture that enables this flexibility. And now let me welcome our guest speakers for today's webinar. We have Maurice Draggon, Director of the Instructional Management System for Orange County Public Schools, and Darlene Rankin, Instructional Technology Director for Katy Independent School District. I'm so pleased to have Darlene and Maurice with us today. Thank you. And to begin, I'd like to invite each of the guests to tell us a little bit about their district and also tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in your district. And so Maurice, can we begin with you?
Certainly. My name is, as was shared, Maurice Draggon. I'm the Director of the Instructional Management System, and I'm sure as all of you who are listening, we all have our other duties as assigned, but my main role is helping to make sure that our teachers have access to high quality content, whether it's through unit plans that are created by our curriculum and instruction folks, or it's digital content that we are either getting from publishers or that we're housing ourselves. And then I've also taken one of the lead roles in implementing our new LMS here at the district. And just very quickly about our district, we are, I believe, either the 9th or the 10th largest in the country, with over 180 schools and over 190,000 students.
And hello, I'm Darlene Rankin. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology here at Katy Independent School District, just west of Houston, Texas. And I work very closely. I am in the technology department, but work very closely with the curriculum department. It's a key function that I am the bridge between both parties to ensure we're both moving along to the path that the district has set forth for us. And so anyways, just exciting things going on here in Katy, and I'm so happy to be a part of Katy ISD. And we are a fast growth school district, not quite as big as Orange County, thank goodness, I think, because I think 76,000 students is a lot, and we are the second fastest growth district in Texas, just behind Frisco. So we continually open up additional campuses each year and bring on the amazing digital resources for them, and I'm just passionate about it and excited to share our story today.
Welcome and thank you. As teaching and learning has become ever more digital, a new opportunity has been created. With the growing selection of digital learning objects available to use, the challenge has become how to streamline access and keep students and teachers from having to go from one digital platform to the next in order to access it all. Not to mention that Googling for an answer isn't always what we want students to be doing. Today's guest speakers have been focused on finding solutions to this challenge. So, Darlene, can you tell us about Katy's vision for digital content and instructional innovation?
Yes, I would like to, Jill. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. So like I had said before, 76,000 students. We're opening up 3 more this next school year, and a fast growth school district, and just trying to keep up with all the components of that, plus and still the new digital resources that we have here in Katy. But I guess I wanted to start out by saying the partnership with IMS Global has been key to us, and in the fact that you have brought forth conversations at a high level, and that's what I appreciate about IMS Global, that I can look towards Katy ISD's vision and have the conversations with high-level folks that you all are able to bring to the table. For example, Texas has standards, as all states do. So IMS actually, along with a few school districts, set up an appointment with our Texas Education Agency, and we were able to have that conversation with them about putting our standards in that machine-readable format. And so that's coming to fruition in the next couple of months. We're going to get actually machine-readable standards for Texas, and that's one of the benefits of being a part of IMS. They were able to explain that to them and show them the details of that. The other thing we are doing right now is talking with our learning management system and our student information system. And as you all know, when you're dealing with multiple parties and trying to get them to all come together in one way, you need that mediator in between. And so IMS Global is going to be that mediator between us. And actually, that meeting is going to take place this afternoon. We're going to start that conversation. So. And then I guess the other thing that I just have to mention is the fact that I have grown so much because this is an international group, but I have gotten to know so many people throughout the United States that have similar ideas, and so I've actually been able to reach out to them and have them do presentations for me, because they've been a couple steps ahead of us. And so whether it was to the curriculum department or to our technical staff, they've been able to do that for me. So I've been blessed with that opportunity. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned the partnership between Katy ISD and IMS Global. The next slide, okay, so the first picture is an escalator, and I just have to say that, with that picture, you have to take small steps. I go to the IMS conferences, and I'm on different webinars and all that, and I want it to happen all, in the next week, the next month, the next school year, and it just doesn't move as fast as I want it to. So it really is about taking small steps. And I will show you the steps in just a few minutes that we have taken. The other picture, it relates to all the folks that you get so busy. My schedule is so packed, as I'm sure most of yours are as well. You have to make sure that you're talking consistently to curriculum, to the principals, to teachers, to assistant principals, to technology. Even in a school district that's as big as Orange County or as big as I feel that Katy ISD is, you still have to, continue that message throughout all of your organization to give them that vision of where you want to be. Otherwise, they're not going to get on those first few steps with you, and it's going to be very hard by the time you get midway up that escalator. And I will tell you that there are some days that I feel like I am running backwards on that escalator, and I'm sure you've seen some kids do that before. Where I think that we're going and I think that we've sealed the deal, I've had to go back and revisit, say, no, we need to go this way. So I heard this the other day that 7 times, 7 ways. if you can communicate your message and your ideas in this fashion, then that's going to help you get your message across 7 times, 7 ways. And I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind as I'm trying to, continue on this path, because I don't know that we're ever there. I'm learning new things every single day. So our first step, and this happened about 3 years ago, is that we knew that we had to bring together all of our applications into one portal, into that single sign-on. We wanted that learning to be anytime, anywhere, on any device, and so this enabled us to do that through this portal. And you'll notice at the very bottom, and I failed to grab the last tab, which is textbooks, but students, teachers, everyone goes here. I actually see everything, but everyone goes here to find all of their content. And it is role-based, and so we're able to, make a differentiation between, ESC staff to an elementary student. So that was the first step. But as you can see, that content is still just out there. It's still all over the place. It's still, I'd have to click on the Brain Pop app, or I have to go to Discovery Ed, or I have to go, so it puts it all right there in one place, and it's that single sign-on. However, to me, there's still additional steps that you need to take. So the second step that we took is to bring on Canvas, and this is the 3rd year for that. And so the second step was to get those unit plans of study into the Canvas courses. So I'm going to show you a few examples of what we've done with that, Canvas being our learning management system. So here's an example of an elementary course. And so instructional technology is working with the curriculum coordinators to figure out exactly what needs to be on these elementary courses for teachers, for the curriculum coordinators to share out to the Commons area, and then for the teachers to download with their live students. And so we're taking those interactive unit plans that have been in that static format and been in our curriculum management system, and we want to put all of that information over so students can start interacting with the content. And so that's an example of our elementary. And then I just also wanted to show you that we also have for some of our textbooks, we were able to import the thin common cartridge. And so this is an example of how it looks and displays in Canvas, the learning management system. And so we brought those in, didn't quite know what we were getting when we were getting a thin common cartridge, but I do have to mention that if you've not experienced one, IMS Global shared one with us early on, so we were able to import that into Canvas and to actually kind of take a view of that to see what is a thin common cartridge and do we even want it. And so anyway, so you can see an example of a thin common cartridge, and that's just one that's been imported and it's all together. But the idea right now is to take those unit plans of study and see where does this particular textbook link, LTI, Thin Common Cartridge link, fit into that module? Where does the Brain Pop video fit in? Where does, so those unit plans of study already tell us what resources should be used with that content. And so we're, separating it all apart and putting it by unit plan of study. So it's a process to do that. It takes a lot of folks to get it into this format. Moving on to a high school course, and so one of the key components that I wanted to mention here is, you need to make sure early on that you're looking at your course and figuring out what the structure should be like. The customer is the student, and so they should have a similar experience whenever they're going to these different courses, no matter the content area. So again, just getting that outline going there. What I wanted to mention on this slide was as we're developing the courses and extracting out all the content that should go into each of these modules, we're denoting where this is a teacher resource, so you can kind of see, maybe it's not too small, the T at the very top, so it says T:(Unit 1. So those are going to be all the teacher resources that he or she needs to review prior to teaching this lesson. And then, of course, the S stands for student, and those are the ones that you would want to activate or import into the live student course for the student to be able to utilize with that course. Moving on to this is the reason I wanted to show you this is because not all of our textbooks currently are in that thin common cartridge where we can separate them out. So these are a few of the just what we call an LTI link out to the various textbooks. So the first one is ConnectEd. You may be familiar with that. That's a McGraw-Hill resource. So we click on that, and depending on the enrollment, then you would see the particular textbook that's there. So that's where we are with that. Again, baby steps, just stepping through this and getting what we can get inside these courses to integrate it, embed it all in together, and making that content discoverable within that particular course. We still have job security. We haven't reached the end point yet, but we hope to get there based on what we know right now. So moving on to the next slide. There it goes. So I mentioned earlier the Canvas Commons, and so this is our learning management systems library of resources. So this is where we're still in that step 2. This is where we're sharing out when the instructional technology folks and the curriculum coordinators come together and they create that course and they've embedded all that content into that course. They're sharing it here in the Commons area. And so then the biology teacher can go and download his or her course from the Commons, as well as the 4th grade math teacher, what have you. They can download that course and bring it into their own instance with their live students. And so this is how we share those. Now, the great thing about that is when updates are made, because they are definitely it's a fluid course where you want to add additional resources, or you want to update things. Maybe you have errors or things like that in there. Then the teacher will get a notification that there is an update to that course, and then he or she can go in and download it at that point. So that makes it very nice. And then, so that's where we are currently. That's that second step. Our first step was My Katy Cloud, which is the single sign-on. Our second step is getting all that content embedded into our courses. And so based on what I know right now, and if I were to give this presentation maybe this time next year, maybe it's going to be a different step. But here's what I think the next step is going to be, and that is asking vendors, which we continually do every single year. Just because you sign an 8-year adoption with your vendors doesn't mean they can't upgrade their product. They can't, right now we have just a single LTI link out to some of our textbooks. Now, we're continually talking to them and saying, listen, we really would like that thin common cartridge, and we want you to allow us to bring that into our instance so we can separate it out and embed it easily for our students. But I believe the next step is actually the learning object repository, and that is asking the vendors for the thin common cartridge. That way, whenever you import all of that content, it's recognized as a single object, and it's tagged independently. So I could import a video on the Constitution, and it would be tagged with the grade level, the type of file it is, the meta tags as far as the keywords that identifies it, what reading level is it, what keywords are there, what is the accessibility, all those various components that make up those single objects. And so that way, when the curriculum coordinator is designing the course, he or she can go and find the resource, the specific resource that's needed for that learning standard. And so I think that's going to be the future. And then, you know, the teacher too, on their end, if a student needs additional information in a different language or a different reading level or whatever it happens to be, then they can pull in those additional resources by going back to the learning object repository and grabbing that resource and embedding it right into your learning management system. So I believe that that's going to be our future step coming on board. Again, I think I kind of said this earlier, but you know, you have those unique students and those unique learners, and if you're going to personalize that information for them, then you're going to have to get the information tagged in such a way so you can personalize it and recommend it to the specific student when they need that resource. So anyways, that's our story, and I want to end with this slide. If you haven't gone to IMS Global's website and gone to their K12 Playbook, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the web page. They have a great video that you can share with your curriculum coordinators, you can share with principals and teachers, and it just summarizes what I said and you know, the thought process that needs to happen or the vision that needs to happen if you want to start incorporating some of these ideas into your own district. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Darlene, a couple questions for you. Are these LTI links or Learning Tools interoperability links to courses manually added, or is that more of an automated process?
They are manually added, yes, they are manually added.
Okay, and also with those same links, is there still single sign-on for students when they launch content from those links?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So it just embeds it and authenticates it right through based on our learning management system, because they've already logged into our single sign-on platform, launched Canvas, and so it all sends that token to authenticate them. And we have a variety of authentication processes that we're using. We're using LDAP and ADFS for most of our applications.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, Maurice, how is OCPS working to aggregate resources into a single location while still having the necessary information to be able to discover the content?
So, thanks, Darlene, for sharing what's happening there in Texas. We're doing actually a lot of the same things. But what I wanted to share overall for us is that, you know, we began our journey about 5 years ago, I think, when we really started to think about one-to-one. We started a massive digital rollout here. And we started with, for us, what was a small-scale test, which was at 7 sites. But just at those 7 sites, it was over 6,000 students that we were testing with. So we're now, 5 years later, at over 25 of our school sites, and we've already rolled out over 70,000 one-to-one devices. All of our high schools are one-to-one. We have 13 more middle schools that are coming on this upcoming school year. That'll bring us to over 100,000 one-to-one devices in students' hands. And we are very quickly accelerating to get the rest of our district. So with all of those things in mind, at the very beginning of our journey, and this is before we ever purchased the device, which I think is very important because it laid the groundwork for a lot of decisions, is we had a lot of conversations around the different kinds of content experiences we wanted our students to have. We already had classroom experiences where teachers were using either a textbook or they were going to individual websites and just showing it to their students in either whole group settings, or they were creating this kind of broken experience where they would have something listed on the board that said, or, you know, go to this website or go into the textbook, read this text or look at this content, and then come back somewhere else and give me feedback on it. Or if they were making a little bit more personalized, they may have an individual worksheet or a video or something else they found online. We realized that you don't go out and purchase, 6,000 devices at the time and thinking for, in the future 190,000 devices to recreate that same exact experience of just going to an individual website or going to an individual piece of content. So we really started thinking about, how do we scale this up? How do we get our folks quickly to multiple websites? How do we get them access to multiple pieces of content very, very quickly? And this was important because we also made some very, tangible decisions that impacted the classroom based on this thought process. For example, when we went and we started purchasing new content, new adoptions from the district level, we stopped purchasing the individual books for students, and we instead only got consumables. For teachers, we only purchased the teacher guide in a digital format, so they didn't get the big box of stuff anymore. So if we were making this intentional, tangible decision to say you will use all of these resources in a digital format, we knew that we had to make the experience really, really great for our teachers and for our students. Let me go one more slide here. So thinking first about the experience of going to multiple sites. This one was honestly an eye-opener for me, because I remember when we first began our one-to-one trial, we did a trial at 3 elementary, 3 middle, and 3 high schools. And elementary, we did all of the grade levels starting in kindergarten. And I remember going into a kindergarten classroom and watching a kindergartner trying to log into the website that hosted the reading content that the teacher wanted them to review for the day. And at that time, they were entering in the alphanumeric password to, and I think it even had a special symbol, to try to get to the website. And the act of watching these kindergartners try to enter in this password, when many of them, quite honestly, on their own probably couldn't spell their own names, we knew that something had to change. We've always tried to think of things at scale, and sitting in that classroom, I remember we came back and we started talking about the fact that in our district we have over 120 kindergarten teachers. So if you imagine there are 18 kids in each of those classrooms, in 120 of these classrooms, you have kids spending 1 to 2 minutes just trying to log in to get the content. You can literally calculate days of instruction that's lost just trying to get into the content before you're actually even teaching anything. So we knew that it was critical that we had to make a concrete push to our publishers to say we have to simplify this. We quickly realized as we worked with our folks in IT that it was not simply to say that we have to simplify it, but you have to simplify it in a standard way. Because there is single sign-on, there's also sending them roster files, and we wanted to do both for our teachers. And what our IT came back to us and said very clearly is that we're sending the same information to all of our publishers, and we were quickly growing 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different publishers that we were sending our teachers and students to get digital content. But even though we were sending them all the same information, we were using a different format every single time to send them the same thing. And it was just crazy to have to do that. And so with that in mind, we looked at IMS and realized that this was a solution for us, because if we could standardize and say, if we're going to do single sign-on, we're going to use a standard methodology, we're going to use LTI links or another standard that's there, such as SAML, to make sure that our students can get in and get in a consistent way. We favored LTI because it allowed us to very quickly implement it with just very few different very little work on both our part and on the publisher's part. And then we said, if we're going to get you roster information, we're going to use the one roster file. We implemented a one roster server here in the district, and we told the servers, sort of like Darlene was sharing, where you have contracts that will last for 3, 4, 5 years, but we implemented what I like to call the carrot and stick approach, which is we said as the carrot, hey, work with us. Work with us to make sure that we can simplify access for our teachers and students to your content. And then the stick was no contract lasts forever. And if you're not working with us now, understand that the next time you try to come to this district, it will be an expectation that you are providing the one you will accept the one roster file, and that you will have a standard way of providing single sign-on. So using those levers and just working with a lot of our publishers, and then working with ClassLink, which is who we use for our dashboard, we were able to get our publishers onto Launchpad and really simplify the process for our teachers and students. So this is what it's like now for a kindergartner when they're trying to get to their content. The first thing that they do is they log onto their computer, and after they log onto their computer, they will then open up the browser. When they open up the browser, it's already set to go to Launchpad as the home page. They click the auto login button, it automatically pulls the credentials from the computer and it logs them in. They click on the button for the publisher that they want to visit, and using single sign-on, it takes them there, and using the data from the one roster file, it automatically drops them into their teacher's classroom. So it just really simplified and reduced steps for our teachers and students, and literally ended up saving instructional time and planning time for our teachers. So it really was a no-brainer for us when we thought about what it meant to implement these standards. So, and I noticed really quickly down here questions, and I'll address it about the contract. One of the things that we do in our work with publishers is that both in the RFP process. Actually, at the RFP process, what we do is, as part of every RFP, we've spoken with our procurement department, and we have included a section with any RFP that touches digital content that is going to have teachers and students logging in, to say that these are the standards that we have as a district for the way that we will either send you content, and these are the standards we expect you to be able to meet with receiving content, protecting student data, allowing single sign-on, and we have basically made them non-negotiables, because what we've said is part of the experience of using any resource is flat out just getting to that resource. And if the experience of getting to that resource is poor, then are you really better than maybe the one that was chosen second in the RFP, but we can simplify that experience for our teachers and students. So all vendors, when they're applying for something that it relates to curriculum, they know up front, as they're going into the RFP process, that this is part of our expectations. So we've put on there, we put a couple options on there. We say, we put one roster version 1.1, one roster version 1.0, and we say, let us know what you can meet, and if you cannot meet this today, tell us exactly when you will be able to meet it, so that we can include that as part of our decision-making process. So along with our single sign-on, the next thing that we worked on is we worked on multiple resources. How do we get folks access to multiple resources? So, and I'll answer this one other one about the vendors here. Great questions, by the way. So the question here is, have you had vendors come on board to continue to get your business? The answer to that is definitely yes. There was not a conversation that we had with vendors that did not include the word one roster or IMS Global. Sometimes I just said them for fun, even if we were talking about something completely different, to make sure that they understood that it was never far from our minds, and to make it very clear that there is an intentional decision that is being made when you say, I have to use your file format. You're telling me that I have to do more work. And not because it is the best thing for me, but simply because you've chosen not to support a standard. And that's a difficult thing, I think, for us as a district to just accept, to say that we're going to have to do more work simply because you want us to, and we're paying you money for us to do that work. So we've tried to be very persuasive with the vendors we work with to say that this is really important to us as a district. We're going to say it over and over again. It's important to us as a district, and we're going to get to the point where we're going to let our money speak to also make it very clear that this is very important to us. So all that being said, when we talk about resources, we also know that it's very important to get access to multiple pieces of resources. You know, the publishers have done a really great job with their content. They have created a nice flow, but just like we said as a district, and many of your districts likely do the same thing, as a district, we've always said the publisher's content is not the curriculum, that the curriculum is based upon the standards and the resources that you surround those standards with. And so it becomes critical to get access to multiple pieces of high quality resources for your teachers and for your students. So we have a learning object repository or a place basically where we can collect resources together called Safari Montage. For us, this is one of the key tools that we've used where we have access to Safari resources, we have access to resources we've curated as a district, we have access to resources that teachers have uploaded on their own through Creation Station, and equally as important, we've talked with the publishers and we have LTI resources, thin common cartridge resources, inside of Safari. So here's what that means in very practical terms. If I'm a teacher looking for and I'm teaching something about nouns, and I want some really great content on nouns, when I go into Safari, I can search and I can find resources curated by the district on nouns. I can find resources that have been uploaded by other teachers in the district on nouns. And I can find resources directly from the adopted publisher on nouns. And I can order those resources however I want. And when students click on those resources, it doesn't matter where it came from for them, because the magic in the background makes it all just work. They click and they view the resource, whether it's a resource from internal sources or from the publisher itself. So it reduces and removes now that login layer altogether, and it really concentrates folks on just the content itself. And I think finally, we this year have procured Canvas as our LMS. And I think this is going to be really huge for us, because this is now where we're going to get a chance to bring it all together. So utilizing LTI and also utilizing some thin common cartridge, what we have now is the ability to make connections in between the digital resources that we have, for example, in Safari Montage, and the exact place where teachers are creating their lessons for students to view. And so now you have something really powerful, because all of these were really separate, not integrated experiences before, but now you have an experience where the teachers and the students, they are able to interact with both the written content of the lesson and the digital content all in the same place. So Canvas is a really important step for us as a district as we look at ways to really streamline the learning experience for our teachers and for our students. So overall, you know, for us, the driving engine behind all of this has really been sticking to the standards for IMS Global and making sure that we don't have the very basic pipeline of just connecting one resource to the other as a barrier. I will say one of the best conversations I've ever had is I was having a conversation with a publisher, a new publisher that we wanted to bring on. We set aside an hour in our conversation. We set aside an hour to talk about how we would be able to exchange information, create login information, and things like that. So I got on the call, and I said, I asked them, I said, so do you all support the IMS Global Standards? They said, oh, yeah, we do. I said, do you support one roster to, and they said, yes. I said, do you support LTI? And they said, oh, yeah, we love LTI. And that was it. We knew that we could connect, and literally that was in the first 5 minutes of our conversation. We spent the next 5 minutes kind of laughing and joking together about how it was so much simpler when you had standards to really move on very quickly to the actual work of making sure the resources worked on the curriculum side. And then what used to be an hour-long conversation, literally it was done in the first 5 minutes, but we spent 5 more minutes just talking about how different it was when everyone was working off a standard.
Thanks, Maurice. Question for you. Who does the meta tagging for your learning object repository? Is it the vendor, the teachers? How do you get consistency in the labeling?
So to the first part of your question, as far as who does the meta tagging, the vendors, the teachers, the actual answer to that is yes. So what we have is we have a group of curriculum folks who are here in the district office that we've actually put out guidelines that say this is how you tag the objects. We have it down even to like the naming convention of how you name the object, so that we can make sure that there is consistency in the work that the district is producing. And we not only provide training to the teachers that are the curriculum folks that are here at the district, but to the administrators, so when they do a review of the content, they can also make sure. So we have some checks and balances in there. Out at the school-based level, when we provide resources and we have training guides and quick start guides and everything else like that, we do the same thing. We give them best practices, naming conventions, things they should use, when they're meta tagging, because what we share with them is you want great content to be found. And when you use these standards, it helps us to make sure that everyone else can find the great content that you're using. Because to us, the point of having a learning object repository is not just that you share it with your students, but we can share great content with all students.
Mm-hmm. Right. So another question, and I'm going to preface this by saying I know that One Roster 1.1 has only recently been released, but a question came in. Do you differentiate between One Roster 1.1? Say, do you differentiate between rostering or assessment and assignment schemas? And maybe you haven't gotten there, and maybe you just have some vision about how you would use assessment and assignment items.
So I know One Roster 1.1 has just been finalized, but we like to be pioneers here. So we've actually been using it for the past year, even before it was finalized with actually one of our major publishers. We've been sending them the 1.1 file. So we wanted to move towards the spec because we knew that it was one that was going to be eventually adopted, and we're producing both the 1.0 and the 1.1 file. Initially, we started producing the 1.1 file because in the area of rostering itself, it provided a little bit more information to our publishers than the 1.0 file did. And so the one publisher that wanted to move to it to get that additional information, we were fine with doing that because they were moving more towards standards. I think when we look towards the future with that file, we have not implemented with assessment yet. What we're looking at, to be honest, is more towards the ability to really tighten the steps that teachers and teachers have to go through to get access to resources, where we can actually put in the whatever is needed to make sure that there's no selection that has to go on when they're trying to choose resources. But I think assessment will also be next. I know that in our work with Canvas, our assessment department is closely looking at the QTI standard to see how they can start looking at incorporating some of our assessment banks and things that we have into Canvas itself.
Awesome, thank you. And just for all of our participants, if you do have any questions or want some more information, please feel free to shoot us a message either in the Q&A and chat. So let me ask this question of the both of you. What advice would you want to give to a district who is just getting started down this road of trying to work on making content more discoverable?
So I would say that I truly believe the most important step is to make sure your curriculum department is on board in the direction that you are going. I feel like, I have been in a state of learning a whole lot of new way of discovering content, and we're used to in technology, if most of you are on the call and you're in technology, you're used to the change, whereas in curriculum instruction, they I guess have standards in place and things that don't evolve as quickly as the technology does. And so you have to make sure that you're going down the road with them in order to adapt and adopt the new standards that are coming on board. For example, what the difference between in order to receive a thin common cartridge and just that simple LTI link out to the digital textbook. That's a huge change for the teachers in delivering their content. It's not what they're used to, and preempting them with whatever you can to show them how a textbook can be different and discoverable by, treating it as single objects as opposed to a textbook in its full state is a change for them. So making sure they're coming on along with you, I think, is the first step, and then showing that to them, modeling that for them.
It's kind of funny when I was listening to Darlene's answer, because I started thinking, and the first thing I thought is, really making sure that your IT department is on the same page and is going to come along with you. I think one of the things that's been interesting for us here in OCPS is that this move towards standards, I think it's actually been driven a little bit more by the curriculum team than IT initially. But once IT just saw the benefits and, quite honestly, the reduction in the amount of files and different work that they had to do, that's where it really caught fire. We've had to really work, though, to make sure that we are all just constantly communicating, and that we just make it very clear to anyone who's coming into the district that they're coming into a united front, that they are not speaking to curriculum and then they can go behind us to IT and say, well, we know that curriculum doesn't really understand how this works, so you understand why we need to do this, where they can't do that. We both say the same exact thing when we're talking to them about the needs to follow the IMS standards.
Absolutely, I like that. It looks like Albert, actually, Jill, just sent in a question, and the question is, do you know any software which assigns the metadata automatically to learning objects according to the IMS metadata standards? And my answer to that is your content providers will meta tag that, but I'll defer to IMS Global on this question about, we've been working on standards for the meta tags, and we obviously want all the vendors to adhere to those and the districts to be asking for those, because if I could say one thing today, it would be that the importance of you asking for the IMS Global standards and asking your vendors to adhere to those, because the more of you that ask for those, then the message is going to be loud and clear to our vendors, and then they'll start adhering to those and then not charging you extra money to put those in there. So it really is, you know, up to the vendor to put those tags on your cartridges. But maybe y'all have a different answer, Maurice.
For us as a district, we've also leaned heavily on the vendors for meta tagging from the content that's coming from them. Now, one of the things that we've actually done that's a little bit unique to us, and maybe at scale, the impact is not as great, you know, compared to the amount of content we're getting, but I think it's still impactful, is with the content that we curate as a district for our teachers, we do have the ability to add additional meta tagging to that content. Now, it's not automatic. It is our folks going in and saying, based upon the standards that we want to address for this unit, these are the standards compared to what has been automatically tagged on this resource we think is really appropriate to help our teachers really do that really core tie-in in between resource and standards. So we don't, outside of relying on the vendor right now, have automatic meta tagging. I did notice a question from Robert that was asking what's the total volume of content the district currently has in their learning object repository. I literally logged into ours to take a look. I can tell you we have close to 27,000 videos, 27,000 images, about 2,000 audio files, 2,000 whiteboard files, 11,000 interactive files, 22,000 documents, 75,000 web links, 21,000 ebooks, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot of different files. For rate of update and removal from this content that we get directly from the vendor Safari, we get a new content. We get new content from them every year, and as part of the content that we're adding as a district, because those are connected to unit plans that we produce, every single year those are reviewed to make sure that they are appropriate for the updated unit plan that we're creating, and if they're not, then they are removed from the system. And then what teachers have, we let teachers, you know, make the instructional decision on their own for any resources that they have. So what's interesting about the idea of what percentage of the content is from publishers versus teacher created is that when you look at publishers, they've been in the work of creating content for a long time. So I can look at the digital objects I'm getting from, let's say, Safari or someone else, but I can get one cartridge from thin common cartridge from HMH, for example, and it may have for their journeys or whatever else close to 30 to 40,000 individual objects inside of it. So immediately when you start working with the publishers, their amount of content is going to dwarf whatever you have from anyone else.
Thank you. Thank you both, Darlene and Maurice, for your sharing your experiences with our guests today. And I'm just going to check one more time with Kara to see if there are any final questions that we need to address.
Jill, I believe all of the questions that have come in have been addressed.
Thank you. So as we bring today's webinar to a conclusion, IMS has over 400 members today. Many are K12 institutions, including 10 of the largest 25 school districts and 21 of the largest 100 school districts. And you can see some of the logos represented here. Our innovation leadership networks work together to produce resources of benefit to the entire K12 community. We invite you to access these resources at imsglobal.org/K12. In particular, in calling your attention to these resources, we want to tell you that recordings from previous webinars are available, as well as the related resources, case studies, articles, videos, and more to help districts of all sizes begin the transition to a fully integrated ecosystem. Information about opportunities to collaborate with other IMS members are available, and in response to some of the questions today, there are procurement resources including RFP language and checklists that districts can use when procuring digital platforms, apps, and tools. Ensuring that your educational technology tools are IMS Global certified is the best way to establish a plug-and-play ecosystem that allows all of your tools and content to work together. If you're just starting out, you should review some of the resources IMS Global has developed to help you know what to ask for from your vendors and what to include in your RFPs. IMS Global offers assistance to our members who need help or guidance in determining their needs. So you'll notice on screen I'm showing a picture of our website, and I'm pointing particularly to certification, product certification, because I want to share with you that IMS has a certified product directory that contains the official listing of products that have passed IMS Global interoperability testing and certification. Visit the product directory to see around 400 certified products. At the Learning Impact Leadership Institute on Tuesday, May 16th, IMS Global will host a K12 Summit for interested participants. You don't have to be a member to join us. Participate in this interactive summit to learn from peer districts as they share concrete examples of the use of data and analytics, as Maurice and Darlene have done today. For additional details and to register, please visit imsglobal.org/LILI 2017. And please mark your calendars for the next webinar, Ensuring Student-Centered Learning is at the Heart of Every Procurement Decision, that will take place in September. Learn about language to embed in requests for proposals and checklists to use for evaluating potential partners. Registration will open for this webinar shortly, so please do mark your calendars and set a reminder, and we'll contact you when it's time to get registered. Please check out these two valuable resources on the IMS Global website and our K12 Playbook that are related to today's webinar. In particular, transitioning to an integrated curriculum standards, and our meta tagging protocol resource will be of particular interest to you. So let's just quickly review some action items to take. Check out those two documents I just mentioned. And if you aren't already registered for the Learning Impact Leadership Institute and K12 Summit, we hope you'll join us. Finally, visit today's webinar detail page to gain access to all the resources shared today, as well as the recording. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you have a great afternoon.